Today in our episode, we are discussing vision. We have Pastor Dr. Rodney D. Smith, the head pastor of First A.M.E. Church, Oakland, with us. He is a friend. He is a brother. He is a phenomenal spiritual leader. And vision is a topic that we thoroughly enjoy discussion. I cannot wait for you all to have this conversation. He is the author of the book, Marrying Your Vision. And we are going to talk about those things, those steps that sometimes hold us back and don't allow us to move forward, and wonderful ways that you can challenge yourself to push through to get out of those seasons that often hold us back. So get your sip ready, get your eat ready, and let's get ready for Marrying Your Vision with Pastor Dr. Rodney D. Smith. Hello, sippers. Get ready for the S.E.T podcast where we sip, eat, talk, the ultimate blend of flavors and conversations. I'm Gina, your host, culinary enthusiast, and spirited conversationalist. Each episode will explore diverse topics, share laughs, and savor the moment with special guests. Sip on insights, eat up knowledge, and join the conversation. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube at SipEatTalk Podcast. Subscribe now for a journey that's as delicious as it is insightful. Let's sip, eat, and talk together. Cheers! Hello, sippers. Welcome to the S.E.T podcast where we sip, eat, talk. I'm your host, Gina. Whether you are sipping on your favorite cocktail, wine, champagne, mocktail, energy drink, coffee, or tea, you are a sipper and you are sipping in with me. And I'm glad to have you. Audio podcast could be found on 16 different platforms, including Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can also check pod.link to get a listing of those various platforms. You can find us on our social media platforms at SipEatTalk Podcast. That's right, on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at SipEatTalk Podcast. You can find me, your host Gina, on Instagram at I am Gina Gibson. That's Gibson with the P like Paul or Peter. I am Gina Gibson. Sippers, it's time for me to share what I am sipping and eating on for the episode. I have been on a journey to try to keep a lot of those unhealthy carbs out of my life. And so it's afternoon, it's around lunchtime, and I have tried a new recipe. Shout out Keto Snacks, a page that I've been following on Instagram. It's Keto Snacks. It's with a Z on the end instead of a S. And he had this grinder salad cheese wrap that was really eye-catching to me because it was a simple wrap sandwich, but instead of using one of the regular wrap breads, he baked some cheese on a piece of parchment paper for a few minutes, approximately 10, let it come out, cool off, and hardened up, and use that as a wrap base. I know, cool, right? But of course, me, I have to put my spin on things. Instead of doing just the cheese, I did mine with spinach. So that's right. I created my wrap with the spinach and the cheese, and that's what I created as the bread for my wrap. I put some turkey lunch meat and some turkey pepperoni on there and made a grinder salad. The recipe will be in the description, and so check it out. As always, I want you to share with me what you are sipping and eating on for the episode. So remember to tag me on Instagram at SipEatTalk Podcast and let me know what you are delighting in for today's episode. I am drinking a nice mocktail today. I have made a strawberry mango lemonade. You heard me right, strawberry mango lemonade. So that's what I'm sipping on today. I'll put that recipe link in the description. And so let's get ready for this vision talk. Vision is a topic that I love to talk about. As you know, one of the segments for the podcast is the visionary sip. I think vision is so important. We all hold vision for something. And so I can't wait for us to get into this discussion with my good brother, Dr. Rodney D. Smith. It's going to be really great. I'm super excited. So get whatever you're drinking, raise it up with me, sippers, and let's cheers for a great episode. Cheers. Pastor Dr. Rodney D. Smith, what's up, brother?
Baby girl, what's up, G-Rock?
I am so happy to see you and have you here. I can't wait for us to get into our discussion today about marrying your vision, which is very close to heart for me. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. Okay. I'm so happy to be here. This is so dope. I'm proud of you. Kudos. to you for sipping, chatting, eating, and talking.
That's what your girl do, you know, right?
I
Rodney
know.
D, I am sipping on some mango strawberry lemonade. What are you over there sipping on today?
I have my made up medicine ball. So I do extra shots of honey and I added some mint. So I got my own vibe going. It's actually Holy Week. So we keeping it minty.
All right, let's cheers it up for a good episode.
Good episode.
All right. And you're from where? Let the people know.
I am born and raised from St. Louis, Missouri, God's country, St. Louis, Missouri. Can't go to heaven until you go to St. Louis. Can't go to heaven until you come to St. Louis.
And in 94, your path led you to how we met to Atlanta, Georgia.
NBC, Morris Brown College, in the house. Whoop, whoop. Came to Atlanta, Georgia, August of 94. Morris Brown is a special place. It's really the mecca of my life because I married somebody from Morris Brown, and 94 kind of started me on the journey that I'm on now.
Yeah, I feel that way for me too. I always think like, what would my life have been like if I didn't pass through
Yeah.
the A? I always like for my guests just to tell a little bit. We know you grew up in St. Louis. We know you went to Morris Brown, but give our listeners who don't know you at all.
I look at my life into 4 stages. The first would be growing up in St. Louis and having an incredible family, a support system where I grew up always being encouraged to dream, always being encouraged to be creative. Every person that is close to me in my life have a certain thing that they do, have a certain special sauce that makes me who I am. I think if you talk to anybody who feels close to me, they would tell you a different story, but the same energy. And so St. Louis was just the foundational part of me. My mother was a pastor. I was heavy into sports. My brothers were hard. In particular, one of my oldest brothers, Ronald, was really like, you got to be that dude. You got to grind. You got to be tough. So that was like beat in me because I was kind of considered the baby. I have a younger sister, but growing up, I was like the baby boy of the family. Even my sister, who was 1 year younger than me, I acted more like the baby than her. So that was the first phase. And then from St. Louis, there is Atlanta. St. Louis is where I grew up. Atlanta is where I became a man, is where I learned who I was as a person. I went through the growing pains of being an awkward, weird freshman trying to figure it out, right? I hadn't really grown into my full manhood. I knew God had a great calling on my life, but Morris Brown is where I tried to figure that out. So then I go from Atlanta to Alabama. Alabama is interesting because Alabama was, in a lot of ways, where I started to question a lot of things. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the greater calling? And now I'm in Oakland, which has now taken on a whole life of its own. And as I live through these moments, it kind of feels like everything that I went through prior, now Oakland is the place where this flower is blooming. That's why I wore a rose today, because I'm a rose, I'm a flower. It has a story, and I am a story.
Okay, Tupac, you got that Tupac energy going on in Oakland. Rose on the concrete. So let's give our listeners some background on how we know each other, because we both love to shout out anytime we can. Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. I knew I would always have you on because the actual concept for SipEatTalk, I feel like came through in the pandemic, when I knew like this was a space that I'd be comfortable in. But when I talk about the visionary sip and how that segment came to be, it honestly started a lot from our conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rodney and I both were on student government. We were in college. That's how we had our introduction. And all the years that I was at Morris Brown, I had never stayed a summer in Atlanta. And then the summer before I graduated, I stayed in Atlanta the summer of 97. And it was life-changing.
Oh my God, it was incredible.
One of the most life-changing summers
Incredible.
of my life. And I had transitioned, I would say, in a space where we had conversations about vision all the time. I didn't recognize it. Did you notice what we were doing then?
I didn't know that was what it was in the moment, but I did know something was happening. I was aware enough to know that all of our lives were in the midst of changing and that something special was getting ready to happen, but I just didn't know the way I understand it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely didn't either. And I also simultaneously at that time, two of my line sisters and really good college friends, Keisha and Muffy, both lived in Northside, an apartment complex. So between their two apartments, we were having similar conversations, just talking about life and all the things that were coming about to move into real adulthood, right? Not in college with the parent support, but being out there. And so that was a really life-changing. But Rodney wrote a book called Marrying Your Vision, and I wrote the foreword in that book. And so vision has always been the center of our discussions on so many levels. As an adult, every pivotal moment in my life, major decision, you've been in my corner. You've been a champion for me, and a lot of things, a lot of choices I've made is reflecting on a lot of those conversations we had.
One thing that has always been in my mind is, what do people think about you? How do people feel about you? Because being a pastor, and you know this, I've always tried to fight not being able to be comfortable because of titles and perceptions, right? So, you know, G-Rock, I'll pull up at the sports bar in a minute, right? Straight pull up at the sports bar, and I'm not hiding my margarita. I'm not, because I think there are unnecessary things that we put on people. And I know, being a pastor, I've always struggled with learning how to be comfortable in my own skin without being offensive, right? Without being offensive to who it is that I am as a person, as a pastor, as a leader in my community, but also being comfortable with who I am and being clear about what my vision is as a pastor, because everybody's is different, right? Everybody's mission is different. Everybody's cause is different. And I struggled with that a long time. You know, I used to go in and look around, who in here, who ain't in here. Man, I'm not doing that today. I'm not doing that. I'm pulling right up, sitting down, and vibing out the way I need to vibe out without being disrespectful to who I am. And I've always wondered, G-Rock, how perceptions and how people feel about you affect your personal life.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. One of my guests, Kendra Lindsay, your Florida auntie, we were talking about, she's a pro-aging expert, and we were talking about the ages and the different places you feel in your ages. And I'm going to try to say it clean, Pastor, but she talked about the 40s being where you stop giving flips about stuff. And she said, you're never going back to giving a flip. You're not recharging or restocking those flips. You've moved into the age where you just don't give a flip. And so I feel like I have spent a lot of my life making, somewhat kind of like you, making decisions on how I present to the world. I don't want to live in that space. I'm free to be who I am unapologetically. I am truly free in who I want to be. I think I've learned a long time ago, people don't talk about you no matter what you're doing. You could be following the letter of the law. People are still going to talk about you. I just feel like I want to be able to live in my truth, because I think that really speaks to people, and it helps people to put down like the veil, and just, you only get this one life. I mean, at this point, Rodney, we're like closer to the life expectancy age for people than not. And I'm not about to waste the rest of my life doing that. I just don't want to. I present a certain way because I am a certain way, but there are a lot of different sides of me, and I love, and I'm embracing all of them.
I love it. I love it. We weave in and out of false perceptions of what success is and what success ain't. I have lived it. I've gone through it myself. To your point, I have witnessed so many people leave this earth. And I often ask myself the question, what are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? And I think there's no aspect of our lives that does not deal with vision to some level. Because again, you're always thinking about something, always. And I have thought to myself, how many wasted days, hours, and months I have spent chasing the cheese, going in circles, wasting time. That's why I
Who moved
say
my
that
cheese?
who moved my cheese? Just running around in a circle.
Like the transition. And so when you think about vision, I'm confident that we all hold vision of something, right? Everybody doesn't execute it the same way. Everybody might not move forward on it, but I do think that we all hold vision of something. And what do you think are some of the characteristics that people hold that actually move on the vision and to carry it out to be a visionary?
I think the main characteristics, and I actually study success. I study people who have created, done something. I am fascinated with creators. And you are a creator, which is why most of the people in my life are creators. They are here to really create and to really give this society something. So the one common thing that I have found with visionaries, creators, is that everybody that I know that I'm close to kind of has this pivotal moment where they think they're going somewhere or they think their life is going somewhere, and bam, they smack with what I call either wounded or they have to go through pain. And I think pain becomes the critical moment of who you become in life, which is ironic because the only way you get to this world is through pain. You can't come in this world as a human without having gone through the rites of passage of pain. I've talked to a lot of women and doctors who say that when a woman has a baby, she's closer to death than any other natural time in her life because something is being pushed out of, literally, a human is being pushed out of her. So I have noticed that common bond that visionaries and creators have about when pain showed up in their life and how they dealt with that pain. And you can determine what that means because pain is different for everybody. But you'll find that pain will always be the turning point in your life and how you handle that and how you deal with that.
It's interesting you say that because we've had this, gosh, you say so many great things. I can't remember everything, but you gave me an analogy once. So I was going through a really tough time and you gave an analogy once and you basically said like, this is the time that you have to celebrate. And I was looking at you like, what? You like, this is the time you have to celebrate. You like, you have never heard generally a really great person that does something great, that carried out some great vision that didn't tell you some type of story of pain behind it. Like you love their stories,
Yep.
You're drawn to them. We listen to their stories, we buy their books and read their audio biographies because it's some significant thing that happened and they're telling their story like how they came up out the ashes. So you were like, so when you're in this moment, baby girl, like you got to celebrate because this is the story. You were like, this is the story right here. All that you're crying about is not about when you get there, you're on the stage or the thing happens or you're blessed with whatever it is you've been praying for or whatever it is. But this is the moment because this is how you tell the story. You don't really hear people's stories that say, it was so fantastic. It was wonderful. It was awesome at every juncture. And we just did amazing things. And I never really thought about that before you said that, but that's real talk.
The greatest moment that all of us have is the moment we're living in right now. This is the greatest moment. And Gina, I have just learned how to make sense of those moments in my life where I was wounded. And here's the thing about it. I think the tough thing for us is in this society, we protect our real true feelings because a part of us wants people on the outside to think that we're okay. And I guarantee you 90% of the people who are watching this podcast right now is not okay. Because being okay has nothing to do with your house, what car you driving, how much money you make. Being okay has everything to do with, here it is, here, watch this, an understanding of why God woke me up. Now, how many people can articulate that on a daily basis? Why am I here? Why am I up? Why am I alive? Why am I breathing? And so when you think about the layers of questions and psychologically what we go through, whether that's divorce, whether that's going through a job change, whether that's moving, whether that's whatever that is for you, until you can really wrestle with your why. And we hear people talk about your why, but I don't think we need to overlook that because your why has purpose and meaning. And unfortunately, G-Rock, it was in those moments that I would wake up and ask myself, what are you doing? And then I had to really wrestle with what was paining me, what was wounding me, what hadn't I gotten over? And that's when I discovered, dude, you're a creator. You're a visionary. Here's the thing. When you're good at something, people don't tell you to continue being good at it. They tell you work on your weaknesses. Think about it. Everybody who's gifted at something, most people's advice to you is, well, you're already good at that. Work on your weaknesses. You need to get people in your life and people around you that can support your weaknesses. Very few times do people tell you double down on what you're good at. And I have spent a lot of time in my life focusing on what I wasn't good at, taking away time from what I was good at. And what I have personally learned from my life, when I double down on what I'm good at, what I'm not good at shows up. Because the way God creates everything is when you are operating like you are today, God will allow people to show up automatically through your passion and through your gifting that's going to be knocking at your door saying, what I need to do to support you. Now,
I believe
you
it.
can
I know
take
that to
time
be
out
true.
of your busy schedule, talking about, you know, I need to fix this and I need to fix that. And that's just a lot of wasted time. You know, this younger generation, they just go for it. They just jump in the
Come
pool.
on now.
Like, if they going, they going. I've learned that from my children. Like, it is so crazy watching teenagers grow up, and my daughter in particular, because she's a freshman at Hampton University. And we're always afraid of what's going to happen to my baby. You know, is she going to be okay? Did I give her enough? And I didn't know what my parting words were going to be. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know if I was going to break down. And when I hugged her and I stepped back, there was a piece that came on me that said, you gave her everything she needs. She's got to figure it out. You cannot be the protector of her weaknesses. She's got to double down on who she is. You've got to trust what you put in her, me and my wife, and that's it. And so I take that same approach now to life and doubling down on the things that I'm good at. I am a visionary and I love inspiration. If I can just encourage people every day, that's what I would do. I just want to encourage you. That's it.
You know, I want to take a step back. You and I always have the best conversations because we both like to get to the heart of the matter, right? It's a lot of people I feel encouraged by, I'm inspired by their words. But for me, I'm the type of personality, I want to get to like the how. I'm at a point in life now, and I don't mean for that to sound like haughty or boastful, but I don't need anybody to tell me I'm great. I know I'm great. I'm a unicorn. I am one of a kind. I am confident about that. I walk through life with that. And when I tell you I mean that, I mean that. But I want to get to the how and the why, the executing, the doing, because sometimes it's a lot of fluff what people talk about. And I won't say fluff because there are people, somebody's called to everybody, right? And the message to get somewhere. But I like to get to the heart of the matter. And so when we talk about the why, for me personally, I found over the years, I have been looking for like this one culminating thing. Do you think the why changes? I know the how changes, but do you think the why changes. Or does the how just change, or does both?
Excellent question. Earlier this morning, I'm working on a song, and the song is about how do we overcome being stuck. And one of my favorite scriptures, Gina, is this man standing at the pool of Bethesda. He's been there for 32 years. And in those days, only the first person in the pool would get the blessing. So all of these crippled people, all of these people who had all these problems would come to the pool looking for the blessing, but only one would get in. Long to the short, Jesus walks by the man and says, hey, why are you standing at the pool? He says, Master, everybody is getting ahead of me. Everybody is getting the blessing but me. He says, do you want to be made whole? He says, yes, pick up your bed and walk. Now, 90% of the people who are watching right now, and I need you to get this, everybody watching. In fact, hit that subscribe button, share this podcast. I need you to go double hard on this, what I'm getting ready to say. This is going to bless you. 90% of y'all are stuck because you're still trying to live your why from a decade ago. Your whys change every single day, every single month, every single hour. And if you're waking up struggling, feeling bad, a lot of times, G-Rock, is because you're still trying to play out a why that season has passed decades ago. We got people stuck listening to you right now because they are still trying to live a why that no longer fits their season. And they don't realize that psychologically, they are hurting themselves and creating wounds and paradigms that don't serve them because you're still trying to get. Just imagine if I was still trying to do my why from 94. It's 2024 and I'm still in that why. Think about psychologically what that does to me mentally, physically. And so create all of these habits. We become over drinkers, too analytical. We are judging more than we should be listening. And guess what? All of that ain't about other people. It's about you holding on to a why, and you ain't even in that why season. What's your why today? What was your why an hour ago? And so, you're sitting there depressed because you believe that because that why didn't happen 20 years ago, that you are where you are. No, baby, pick up your bed and walk. Create another why. Let it go. It's okay to let it go. That's how powerful God is, because he can give you. One time when I was in a season of depression, my prayer became, God, help me to dream something bigger than what I'm dreaming now. And that lifted me. That got me back up off my feet, because I realized even though that dream didn't come true, God could give me a greater one. But just imagine if I stayed connected to that why.
Right.
So, no, your whys change every day, every hour. Gina, you might wake up tomorrow, and we got to give you permission for that to be okay. You might wake up tomorrow and say, I want to be a movie star.
Okay.
All of your friends will be like, why do you want to do that? The podcast is going so well. Why would you give up the podcast to write a movie? Because my why changed.
Well, that makes me feel good, because, I describe myself, and when I'm trying to do better with my words. So I wonder if I should stop doing that, because I am impulsive. I do believe I have an impulsive personality. In reshaping that, I think that, and you and I talk about this all the time, because what I've tried to get better about over the years, when you talk about vision, is I think sometimes for me along in my journey, I get down sometimes when things are happening, or I think things are happening the way they should. And you're right, because in certain seasons of my life, it was because I was still trying to hold on to something. And we ain't going to get talking about the men, because, we can talk about that all day long, all the times I didn't go, like, Rodney D. Crying, because I didn't held on to a man many a days, way too long, right? And that can really jam you up too in these dang relationships. That's not even relationships, but situationships. You know what I mean? But I feel like what's important, and I hope that, listeners grab hold to that, or even hear that, is like, when you're training a moment of transitioning, that a lot of times I've heard an elder say this many, many years ago, and I didn't receive it at the time. It's like, when you're moving into something great, you're going to have to let something or someone go.
Mama. That's good stuff.
My goodness. When I say in my life that has been really true, it's like something happens and is occurring, and it's something I got to let go, or it's somebody I have to let go to get to the next thing. And I think that can really hold up the vision, right? And then I've learned that I'm trying to jump and do something, but I'm not aligned right to do it. So then when it fails and it doesn't work, I'm like, oh, I was wrong. That wasn't right. It was the right thing, but I wasn't positioned in the right way. So things fall to the wayside. And you and I've had this conversation, for me, and it's come back around 8 years later, or 5 years later, or even 2 months later. And I realized letting go is tough, Rodney D. When it's a unnatural coping mechanism, or a person, that's really tough. Would you say?
I think letting go is very tough, and I'll speak from personal experience, recent experiences. So as you know, I'm in this season of being an artist. And when I first went on the journey, and I told people I was going to do an album, it was kind of like, dude, what? We love you, Pastor Rodney, but you tripping. You're going too far. But I realized something about myself to your point, and I realized something about my life. As much as a visionary as I thought I was, I didn't realize how much fear played a role in what I did and what I didn't do. And I also didn't realize how much of being a pastor would stop me from doing things that if I wasn't a pastor, I wouldn't even think twice about. So there are mothers, there are business owners, there are people who have started nonprofit organizations. There are all kind of gifted people watching your show right now. And what I would say to your audience, G-Rock, is don't be afraid to be all that's with inside of you based off of who you think you are. Because if I would have let my title or me being a pastor continue to control my life, I would never break the ceiling of pain. Because again, and we're going to go back and forth with pain and being wounded, because all pain is an opportunity. That's what pain is. Pain is opportunity.
I get
and
that.
How you move from that opportunity is going to determine the certain outcomes that you have in your life. So I would encourage anybody, if you are a mother of 4 and you always had a desire to go back to school, you got to really get honest with yourself. What's stopping you? Because we can come up with all kind of excuses. Well, I'm 50 now. I can't do it. Oh, I'm this or I'm that. And the truth of the matter is, G, we're really just holding ourselves back because that fear is worse than cancer. It alters your life. I'm telling you right now. Everybody listening to me right now, understand this. Your fear is costing you happiness. And most of you won't even try just because of who you think you are, that your time is passing. You don't even realize if your why will change, so will your life.
How would you tell people to tap into division? Do you think it's sitting there and it's something you have to want to do? Do you want to have to see more? Somebody listening to us right now, like, well, what is it? I don't know what division is. I don't even know how to,
start with your pain.
Figure that out and decide. Start with your pain, you say?
Start with your pain. Write down on a piece of paper pain and circle it. Write pain and circle it. And then draw a line like a bar from each thing and write down everything that irritates you and troubles you. What are you thinking about before you go to bed? What are you thinking about before you go to bed, right?
These ninjas. No.
Well, so maybe there's something in that, right? These ninjas, got it. Maybe we could talk about it.
Excuse Rodney D and I, y'all. This is what we do. Pardon me.
This is what we do. But I'm glad you went there, because let's double down on where we are right now. Let's double down on that. Isn't it interesting that what you feel is what you're thinking, period. Whatever you're thinking is what you're feeling. You can't feel anything beyond what you're not thinking about. Now, isn't it interesting, to your point, that we have all of this life and all of this opportunity, but if all of us were to be brutally honest, something comes down to what kept me up last night at 1:30 in the morning. That's that irritation. And so when you start asking the question of how do you become a visionary? How do you hone down on it? Whereas you got to start with your pain. Because I believe that pain is nothing but an opportunity. And so if I really deal with my pain, the truth is I might need to be starting to school. I might need to be looking at adopting children, because I'm thinking about children every night who don't have a home to go through. And my pain is the fact that I see the world as that's the problem in the world. Or every time you see a homeless person and you see that and something strikes a nerve in you, then maybe you need to be starting your nonprofit organization on how to feed people. We're always looking outside of our problems. If you want to be great in life, solve a problem. And that starts with dealing with your own pain. Your therapy is your pain. Now, I'm not a professional licensed therapist, and I recommend that everybody that can get therapy, go get therapy and talk to a professional. I think preachers got in trouble many years because we would tell people who were married, who were miserable and had a terrible marriage, stay in it, just pray about it. And think about how devastating that could be to a woman who is being abused verbally and even physically. And I'm sitting here telling her, stay in something. that doesn't serve her, right? That's my male egotistical view of, and here's what we do, those who are Christians or whatever your faith is, we always put everything on God because we don't take time to get all the information, and we start prescribing the wrong diagnosis with people and telling people to do stuff that we shouldn't be telling people to do. What you should be doing is being able to articulate what the hell irritates me. What is causing this pain in my life? And when you go and have surgery on that, that's what's going to shift you. Because think about this, G, and I'm asking this question to you. Just think about a time when you started something. What were you thinking? What were you going through? What were the circumstances that created any of the things? Because you are a mogul in your own right. I know of several things that you've created, started, and done. And I'm just interested. Where were you when those things happened in your life?
I was saying a few choice superlatives about you. You already know what story comes to mind.
I know where you're
So
going.
to those of you listening, I never had any desire. I never had any professional desire. I knew I was going to law school. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. That was it. That was it. There was nothing more to it. Wow, you talking about pain. That was really painful. And I always excelled at everything that I did. But I have to back up because there's always a shift and you have to see something that's happening. I got into my last year of law school. I was really burnt out, which is very natural. It's not a unknown thing to be tired at the end of 3 years. I took a juvenile. We took clinics. I had been a bankruptcy paralegal. I wasn't into criminal law. I didn't really have a heart for domestic violence. And I think the juvenile clinic was one of the only other ones. And I did it. Fell in love with my professor. Jackie Nash changed my life. Attorney Jackie Nash changed my life. And we were advocating for juveniles. It was going well. And I remember telling one of my friends, like, I'm tired, I'm burnt out. Fast forward, I moved from Baton Rouge. I went to Southern for law school. Shout out to Southern University Law Center. What were you like? You weren't even a year into your church yet when you just started Freedom Temple. And I went and I visited, and the first time I think I had visited when I was here for homecoming that October before, and when I came back I was like, I'm gonna go to Pastor Rodney's church or whatever, and I go, and the first sermon you preached was Toot Your Own Horn, and you talked about the scripture from Genesis 12 when he set out Abraham to make thee a great nation, and they're gonna make their name great, and whatever. And I actually saved it as a memo, like the title. I was studying for the bar at the time, and boom, I failed the bar. I was devastated. I was just whatever. And a week before I took the bar, you take me out to lunch. Houston's on Peachtree Street. I will never forget that. And we're having a conversation. You're like, oh, I'm proud of you, G-Rock. You didn't graduate, you did your thing. But I got to tell you something, baby girl. He was like, the exact words, the practice of law is not going to be what makes your name great. And I'm like, what kind of pep speech is this? I'm stressed out. What is happening? I was so mad at you. I left that restaurant cursing you out. I was like, what a jerk. I can't believe Rodney D did that to me. I failed the bar. You're one of the first people I called. I think you were the actual first, if not the first, the second person I called. I'm hyperventilating. Just my whole world was falling apart. And you were like, are you done? You was like, here's what's going to happen. You finish today, go get you some ice cream, keep crying, keep snotting. And he's like, and yet tomorrow you got to pick yourself up. Like, you got to pick. I'm like, what? It's not tomorrow. You don't understand. And fast forward, the reason why I wrote the forward in Marry Your Vision, because I started Make Your Name Great, my nonprofit organization, college prep for minority high school students. That was one of the roughest times for me. And it was really, really birthed from it.
I want to go back to
really birthed from. Shout out to Jackie Nash too.
Yes. I want to go back to something you just said that I think is important. Give yourself time to grieve, right? So me and Gina have this thing where sometimes we need to grieve, and we call and say, okay, this is going to be one of them days where
with no pep talking right now. No pep talking.
No good spirit. Give yourself time to grieve. Also give that grief an ending date, right? So for me,
Yeah.
I never let it go past a day. I will take a day and I will say to myself, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to sit in my feelings. I'm going to feel pitiful. I'm going to do all of that. And I don't want to hear nothing else y'all got to say. But after tomorrow, after that day, I can't grieve. And it dawned on me, G-Rock, that not only does our whys not change, but many of us are still grieving over losses, over mistakes, over things that have happened. Heartbreak. It ain't happened for me yet. Why me, God? I don't get it. Everybody else's stuff looks better. That's what you're saying. Which is why Facebook and
People
social
still
media.
grieving over loss of friendships. People still, I mean, the smallest things can stay with people and fundamentally change who they are. And it just invites bitterness. It invites just heavy sorrow and anger or depression and other things. And at this point in life, I have realized like it's so important to let things go. It's so important to make peace with things. It's so important to rationalize for yourself, because I'm a why person. I always want to know why, like, but why? But you really have to move past that, because a lot of things, especially if you're hurt by people or a person, you may not get the explanation, and you have to be able to come to a place of peace at yourself, and you have to find a lesson in it. It sounds so cliche-ish, but that has just helped me so much that, you know what, thank you God for this moment to stretch me, to make me clearer, to make me calmer, to whatever it is you have to find. It's so important. It's not, and that is a lesson I've learned from many people over the years, and I keep it in heart, because if not, that stuff will just keep you so bottled up and upset, and it keeps you stuck. It keeps you stuck. Fresh life can't birth from you.
I'm gonna say my first controversial thing. Here we go. I know I'm gonna get in trouble saying it, so here we go. We 10 toes down now. Here we go.
You gonna club Shay me and blow me up?
Yeah. Do not email or text me on what I'm gonna say, but I want you to sit in it. And this is gonna be something that you sit in for the rest of your life, because every time you find yourself here, you're going to remember what I said. If you are blaming somebody right now, you're not ready to grow. You have to force yourself to 1, grieve, 2, accept, 3, move on. If you are standing and listening to this podcast and you're saying, I'm not a millionaire because of what my husband did, I'm not happy because my boyfriend didn't treat me right, I'm not a professor because my daddy wasn't in my life, you are stuck at the starting lineup, staying somewhere that you have missed opportunities to overcome. Until you're ready to grow, you got to stop blaming other people for where you are. Because again, remember what we said earlier, pain is only opportunity. So my daddy wasn't there. Okay, I'm going to take that opportunity and I'm going to be a good dad. So I failed the bar. Okay, I'm going to start Make Your Name Great, right? So I went through divorce. I ain't going to date again. I hear all of this stuff. We have allowed people to fundamentally shape who we are. Most people that you know, Gina, you don't even know them. You know they're representatives, because something painful that has happened is causing them to show up a certain kind of way that they're unconsciously aware of. Most of y'all watching this podcast don't realize you're not even yourself. Because I guarantee you, if money is your thing and you hit the lottery, you hit the $100 million lottery, right? You would be different. Why? Because that money would change you. Now, that might be good or it might be bad, but it's going to change you one way or another. It's going to change you. And so I'm always fascinated, Gina, at everything that I look at in my life that I have held on to is because I had to look in the mirror and admit, you ain't over there yet. It's kind of like, even in relationships, we say we're over people that we're not over because we want to convince ourselves that we're over it, but we don't realize every other person that we're dating after the bad one, we don't realize that we are comparing and we're stuck in that old season and we're not able to show up differently. A lot of times, not for everybody, but when you're really over something, you'll notice you don't compare it to what you had in the past. When you're over, you only compare it when you're not over. your mind is saying, well, such and such didn't do this, and so didn't do it like that, and such is this. That's because you ain't over it. And it don't have to be a relationship. That could be a job. That could be a family member. It could be a million things. But if you still comparing it, you ain't over it. When you over it, it has no bounds because I'm over it. I can move on. I can do what I need to do. I can flow. I can move.
I think if we work harder on the letting go part, that's why I'm a big, I preach therapy too, because it's really important to be able to move through those spaces, because we deserve to be our best happy selves at the age we're at now. Like, oh my gosh, like it's hard to believe I will be 50 next year, right? It's like you want to get to this stage in life. Yeah, next year, 2025 is coming, okay? And it's like at this stage in life, you just want to be able to wake up and be like, I'm happy. I keep telling people, I don't want to do that thing and get to 50 and be like, I want to be like this. I want 50 to be like this. No, I want to walk into 50 feeling like this is 50. Like this is not that I gotta wait to get there. You know what I mean? It's like, so I'm working hard on that now, but I would, when we talk about vision, I want people to understand vision. People get lost in this conversation that vision is about starting a business or being an entrepreneur. Vision is a vision to be your best self, a vision to be your happiest self, a vision to be in a healthy relationship. If it's your vision to be a mama or daddy, just your vision connected to your purpose and who you are. And I want us all to be connected to that and not sit in misery. I never thought it would come to that, because people would say like, oh, you'll start to lose people in your life, or you'll not be connected to people in your life because of where you are. And I'm like, no, that's not fair to judge people, just because they're not happy. But the truth is, it does become hard. It becomes hard when you're on this path trying to be and chasing your happiness, and you get on the phone or you're talking to somebody that's having a hard time. I don't want to minimize them, but just in a space where it's hard for them to find or connect to their happiness, and it's draining. And that's hard for me, because I know I've been in seasons where I've probably been draining, and I'm thankful for the people that wrote out for me, but it should be a limit on it, right? We still having this conversation a year, 2 years, 3 years. Would you say you let them go on some level because you just get tired of the same conversation?
You gotta let go, and I'm glad we're both being vulnerable, because everything that I'm saying to you, and y'all hear me, doesn't mean that I've mastered everything that I'm saying. But what I have done is I understand the truth about what I'm saying. And I also understand that whether I wanted to accept or believe it about myself, as I have matriculated and gone through this life, I have realized a fact about me, Gina, and that is, I know in my gut everything that I'm holding on to. I know it. At this stage of my life, I can be honest and vulnerable enough to say that I'm holding has held me back. One of the most freeing things, and shout out to Payne Seminary, I was invited to a pastor's retreat. In the pastor's retreat, there was a therapist, and it was an introductory to therapy. And I was debating, am I going to go see? I was like, I don't need to talk to nobody. Whoop-de. And I purposefully waited to the last minute to text the lady. And she said, okay, Pastor, what slot would you like? And I said, what's your last slot? Because in my mind, I was like, I can oversleep. I can make up something. I ain't going to show up. And I went back to my room to take a nap to try to miss the therapy session. And I never took a nap. Because that thing was just
say I couldn't sleep.
I couldn't sleep. So I went, and it literally changed my life. And I realized, to your point about letting go, that if you could just realize that from this podcast today, if you could just realize that what you're holding is affecting you, is affecting your health, it's affecting your weight, it's affecting your smile. We don't even know psychologically that pain causes the wrinkles in your face to move a certain way. So when you are a person who's consistently holding pain, it literally kills the cells that are in your cheeks for you to smile. And you don't even realize it. It's time. You know, somebody asked me once, Pastor, how long or what is the time frame that I'm supposed to get over something? For some, it might be 10. For some, 10 years. For some, it might be 30 years. For some people hold stuff a lifetime. But nobody ever told me you can end it today. Like right now. Just because something has been devastating don't mean that you got to carry it for a lifetime.
Right.
You can say, the hell with this pain. I have carried this long enough. I am literally deciding I can't do this no more. You know, we talk about divorces. It's a whole bunch of stuff we need to divorce. A whole bunch of thinking, a whole bunch of processes, a whole bunch of people who are toxic that you don't realize you can't get to your best self because you are surrounded around people that are needy to your depression. There are people in your life right now that needs you to be depressed because it feeds their depression. But I guarantee you, the moment you divorce that relationship is going to change and you're going to see them for who they really are. Because their need is not on the greatness in you. Their need is as long as you stay at this level. That's why we always say, you notice when successful people always say that people around them say that you changed. And my philosophy, Gina, is everybody should be changing. If I'm the same person that I was last year, that means I ain't grown.
Right. I get that.
God gave me Marrying Your Vision over 20 plus years ago. And he showed me that one of the things that I would do was hold this national Marrying Your Vision conference. And at the end of the conference, I saw myself literally marrying people, going through a whole ceremony where you marry your vision, you marry your dream. And going back to being stuck and your why and seasons changing, that was probably 15 or 10 years of that vision that I held on to, where I felt like a failure because in the back of my mind, I was always saying, you never done this. You've never done your Marrying Your Vision piece. And then recently when I started doing my music, God showed me that sometimes you get a vision, but it's for an appointed time. And sometimes there's something greater in your life that will help you pick that back up to make that greater. Let me give you an example. Shannon Sharp, Club Shay Shay, he's a football player, right?
Right.
He's a Hall of Fame football player. Most people don't realize he's in a whole new groove with his podcast, right?
They won't even know him as a football player.
And they don't even know him as a football player, right?
Nope.
But the football was a gateway for him to change his why. And that's what I be trying to get people to see. Like, we get so stuck on believing the hype on what you think you got to be or what you're supposed to be. But if you really not learn how to shift and how to get off of something and get on to something else, you can get successful and blow up and do something greater that you never even thought was possible. And then go back and pick that up. Steve Harvey is the same. I mean, me and you talk about Steve Harvey all the time. You know, he started out as a stand-up comedian, but he made $100 million doing game shows. Like, sit in that, people. Get off of this notion and forgive yourself and let go of some stuff so you can really take off and go to the next level and get on something else and pick that back up. To me, that's being a visionary, knowing when to align. Alignment is everything.
This has been so good. Pastor Rodney and I talk about relationships so much, but we're going to be having a part 2, and we're going to be coming back to talk about relationships, whether you're single, whether you're married, engaged, think about wanting to be with somebody, whatever it is, we're going to talk about relationships. But as we close out, just talking about vision, you've given us some really good gems to sit with and think about. And so I want our listeners to just be reminded that it's okay to sit in your pain, to give your pain a timestamp, and then how do you move past it and let it go? Because again, the vision is anything that's inside of you that you have a desire to do, and these things that are holding you back. And so I really appreciate you. You have served me so well in my life, just as a friend, as a brother, and even though we're so close in age, a spiritual leader. I appreciate you so much. What are those final words you want to leave our listeners with when it comes to vision?
Thank you, Gina, for allowing your platform to be open to me. I think you rock. I'm really excited about how you're moving and shaking in this season, and I can't wait to see you explode, not just with your podcast, but all the other many things that you got moving and shaking in your life. So thank you for the platform. I would say to your listeners, start where you are. And I would also start and be honest about what aches me, what pains me right now. I think when we talk about vision, I just personally look at pain as an opportunity. And if you just take a moment to breathe, right? Like my album that's coming out later this summer, I'm opening that album up with a song called Trust Issues, but the hook says breathe, breathe, breathe. And I want to say to your viewers, breathe. Like for real, like just take a moment to stop and to breathe. Because whenever you're having a panic attack, the first thing that the doctors are going to manage for you is to get you breathing, is to get you calm. And if you're moving and you're shaking and you're going through this world and you're feeling like you're in a panic attack because you don't see yourself as a visionary, you don't see yourself as gifted, you don't see yourself as talented because now you got to raise these children. Now you're working 12 hours a day, so you're tired. Now you're 30 pounds overweight. Now you're eating fried chicken and drinking soda and drinking too much. You've got all of these layers of things that you have created for yourself to compensate the fact that you don't want to deal with your pain. So if you want to be a visionary, you want to shift your life, I want you to know that all you have to do is breathe. Write pain on a piece of paper and circle it. And start with where you are today. You can't deal with nothing else but where you are today. If where you are today is a battered person, start there. If you got a divorce yesterday, start there. If you got laid off at 3 o'clock today, start there. Gina, we're always trying to start where we're not. And the truth is, for some of you want to be so much more than where you are, but you can't be more until you start where you are. And you got to start with your pain and build from that. You got to ask yourself some really tough questions because being a visionary is turning that pain into opportunity.
I love it.
So that's my challenge.
Rodney D, you know I appreciate you, brother. There is Pastor Dr. Rodney D. Smith, head pastor of First A.M.E. Church, Oakland, better known as Fame Oakland. I love and appreciate you. I can't wait for you to come back for us to have our discussion about relationships. I know it's going to be great.
We're going deep. We're going real deep. Like we're taking all the limits out.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's cheers to the your medicine ball. Cheers. There you have it, sippers. That was a great discussion. I'm really appreciative of Pastor Rodney for taking his time. I think when it comes to vision, we make things so big sometimes, and it's small steps that we can take, not always the easiest, to help us get where we need to be. But I just want us all to live our best, authentic selves and walk in line with our purpose, what we were put here for, and getting in tune with what that is. And if your purpose is to give out smiles to everybody, to pat somebody on the shoulder and tell them they're doing a great job in life, then that's what I want you to align with. It's very important. So I hope you pulled some good nuggets and gems and takeaways from today's episode. But I'm super excited for the second part that we have coming up, talking about relationships. That is a lane that Pastor Rodney thrives, and he talks about relationships so much. And so I'm excited for that conversation and for you all to tune back in. Remember, you can follow the podcast on YouTube, Threads, TikTok, and Instagram at SipEatTalk Podcast. You can follow me, your host Gina, on Instagram at I am Gina Gibson. Remember that P like Paul or P like Peter. I am Gina Gibson. You can also find Pastor Rodney on Instagram at I am Rodney D. Smith. I am Rodney D. Smith. I'll drop a link in the description as well. And remember, life is too short for bad vibes and bad drinks. So keep sipping, keep chatting, and always remember, life is a journey, but it's better with the sip and a chat. Until next time, cheers. Thank you, sippers, for joining the SET podcast where we sip, eat, talk. If you've enjoyed our flavorful conversations, don't miss out on future episodes. Subscribe now and follow us on Instagram, at YouTube, at SipEatTalk Podcast. Let's continue to sip, eat, and talk together. Until next time, cheers.